First of all, I'd like to say hello to everybody and welcome and thank you for joining us for this wonderful, excited virtual trip to Peru. And I think we're going to learn a little bit more than what we think we're going to learn. I'm excited about that. I am Lisa Torgerson. I'm the Director of Leisure Travel Services for Travelex International. And I'm going to introduce Ashish here in a minute. He's a wonderful partner that we love working with. His company, Big Five. So this is the second one we've done with him. We were so excited with the first one, we decided to ask him to come back. But I also want to let you know this is going to be an open conversation. It's not just a presentation. Feel free to ask questions as we go along. If you would like to, during the presentation, you can mute yourself and then unmute yourself as far as questions go. And feel free to ask questions, or you can wait till the end. So Ashish, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you take us along with Chris and your team to Peru.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Good. Thanks so much, Lisa. And thanks everybody for joining us. So yeah, I've known this gang of misfits here for a long time, actually. Karina and I have known each other since I was in college. And Chris and I, you know, for years. And you're going to see Karina. She's in the middle there. She's actually our country manager. She runs our operation in Peru. She's coming to you from Lima. And then you're going to see Chris Vera. Chris is actually sitting in Cusco. I'm going to turn it over to him right now because the sun's setting in Cusco right now. I want him to show you something, and then I'll take it back. So Chris, go ahead, take it away. Show them what you want to show them.
Well, thank you very much, Ashish and Lisa, for the introductions. Thank you for everyone for joining us. Yes, as she says, I'm in Cusco, above 11,000 feet, up in the heart of the Andean range, the heart of the Inca civilization. And something that I always like to tell my guests, my friends, is that I'm right now sitting in my house or right behind here in this little hill, exactly where my finger's pointing. There is an archaeological site built by the pre-Inca civilization known as Cotacalle. Right there, you see it. Yes, it's full of modern constructions, but right there is where I believe I got all my passion for not only history and archaeology. When I was a kid, my friends and family were playing football right down there. But back then, when I was a kid, I used to run up there and just dream about every single item that I used to find on the surface of this precious archaeological site. As she said, yes, the sun is setting, but I hope you enjoy the view for a while.
Thanks so much. So, you know, Chris, Karina, we had a chance to travel through Peru. You know, went in November, and you know, Chris and I, he's my guide when we go through with our family. He is literally, you will not find anybody better in Peru in terms of, we call him John Bon Jovi. Well, because look at his hair, you know, so it's there. So as Lisa told you guys, it's a pretty open format here. As you can see, we have no shame. We'll crack jokes all day long. So I think right off the bat, Lisa and I were talking about this. You know, if anybody's been to Peru before or has a story about something in Peru, by all means, share it. Chris, Kari, and I, we've got some pretty crazy stories. And also on the call is Gisela Polo, our Latin American manager. Gisela was born and raised in Chiclayo in northern Peru. Otherwise known as the part that wasn't controlled by the Incas. So we're able to, you know, start talking about that as well. You know, and so if anybody has stories about Peru or stories about exploration, I think it's great. But and we'll keep coming back to it and just interject if you do. But Chris, I want to tell everybody here about the Peru beyond Machu Picchu. So beyond the normal stuff. Outside of Machu Picchu, what's your favorite part of Peru, the part that you think nobody really knows about that you wish they did?
It's definitely got to be the region of Amazon, where there's this amazing archaeological site known as Cuelap, where we had the chance to go and visit a couple of years ago. Well, actually last year, wasn't it? Such a wonderful place with a site that has been built by people before the Inca civilization took control of that area. And not only the archaeological sites, which is not one or two, there are more than 5 in a very small area, but the 5th highest waterfall in the world happened to be there. And it's an amazing hike for adventurers to get up there.
Yeah, I remember.
That's got to be my favorite after Machu Picchu, yeah.
Well, and I'm gonna share some pictures actually here in terms of it, just to be able to share with you guys what this looks like. Um, oh, there we go. Yeah. So this, Chris, tell us about this picture. This is Cuelap. This is the gate. But tell us about this, because you gave a really great talk here. And those of you on the call, you know, Chris has an archaeology background, so he was giving this amazing talk about Cuelap itself. But go ahead, Chris, talk about this.
Well, there's a lot. Where to begin? What you're looking on the picture right now is a gigantic wall that seems some sort of protective wall, like never seen before until the arrival of the Inca. So we're talking in time somewhere in the early 1400s. All right. It's a nice walled polyfunctional city that has it all. Something similar that we can think of, Machu Picchu. Yes, we're not about talking Machu Picchu, but what I'm trying to say is that there is much more than Machu Picchu, and this is one of them. And guess what? This is located in the Amazon region. Okay, Cusco, for instance, is one of the 24 regions that the country has. Another one up in the north, in the border with Ecuador, is the region of Amazon. When you hear Amazon, you hear you think about the rainforest, lush vegetation, and so on. Well, the region itself has also pretty rugged mountains, and this is where this particular archaeological site happened to be, in the middle of nowhere, with some architectural designs like the one you can see that are also unique to this particular group of people that dominated this area a long time ago. Things that might remind you to, is it Adidas? Adidas might have stolen the idea from
No,
it.
this is Umbro.
Umbro.
Umbro, that's it. That's the one. That's the sign. Any football fans?
There we go.
Karina's got daughters, and she knows Umbro really well, right, Kari?
Umbro, yes, Umbro.
I should have known that better. But yes, this unique type of architecture style is only found in that area, not even in Machu Picchu.
Well, and Chris, you were telling me about this place. So down here, you guys can see, and you know, inside that walled city, this particular place here, what was so cool about it was, Chris was talking about the fact that this place is is barely excavated. So these bricks, these are layers. The actual the mummification, or the mummified remains, are still down here, because up here they did mummify. And they're still down below ground, but you were talking about that as well. Do you want to share that? And I've got a theory to float out to everybody, especially because we're talking about Chicago here, that I think everybody's going to appreciate. But go ahead, Chris. You want to talk about the way this is set up?
Absolutely. There is, I'm going to say, only a 25 to 30% of work done in this site. Nothing but mere emergency actions taken by archaeology to avoid further erosion or destruction caused by natural resources like the trees and the vegetation. Remember, they are in the Amazon region. In other words, it's a pretty untouched area, although it's been known for quite a few tens of years now. Archaeologists have barely understood how, why, who, and when they decided to locate in this area. Talking about the burials, they seem to be unique. And we're talking about the civilization that is known as the Chachapoyas, the one who built this archaeological site named Cuelap. Okay, they talk about various similarities with what happened in Egypt during the 26th dynasty. So that must have been somewhere in the 3,500 years before Christ. So there's something that it doesn't quite match what we have tried to understood as of now, but there it is. The evidences that archaeologists have been lately finding in burials are simply, without words. We can simply understand the way we thought as of now. So in other words, it seems that we only know a good 10% of our history that we can tell us back, and this is a pretty good example, Ashish.
Well, and the chat box is active on this, so with this call. So please, by all means, if you don't want to just pipe in and talk, you can feel free to use the chat box or watching it. Can everybody see the chat box? If you can see the chat box, just put a Y. Just type a Y there so we know that you can see it. And that you're there, because I have a question for all you guys since you're in Chicago. Perfect. So who here has been to the Field Museum in Chicago? And you just put a Y there if you've been, obviously. Cool. So here's something that I have to tell you guys. So the Field Museum right now is running a theory which actually Chris convinced me of when we were there, and Kari, you were there because you went into Lemabamba and saw this. But the Field Museum has a theory that the Romans, when they conquered Egypt, the catacombs, the way they mummified in northern Egypt and Alexandria, they didn't learn to mummify from the Egyptians. They learned to mummify from the Romans, from the Peruvians, and specifically from northern Peru. And the Field Museum actually has the mummified remains from the Roman Empire and the mummified remains from the Chacha Empire. And they actually put them side by side, and they look so similar that the Field Museum right now is floating that perhaps the Peruvian mummies came first. So they are perhaps floating that the Romans learned from here. Chris, do you want to talk about that? And I encourage everybody, once you're able to safely go to the Field Museum and go check out the mummies room, because it's incredible.
I would actually run straight to that museum if I would have a chance. Yes, the history in Peru goes back to at least 5,000 years before Christ when we talk about civilizations. But if we talk about the very first men dominating all of these rugged Andean region, from the Andes, the Andean range, goes back to 14,000 years. So if you thought the Inca civilization was it, that was basically the very last chapter on the development of men here in this area until my beloved friends from Spain arrived, right? So it's not crazy to think the possibility that the very first type of mummifications, like the ones you can see in the Field Museum in Chicago, may have started here in Peru. Because it's much older here, and it seems that it's better developed here than in the Egyptian area. As I said, we have found only very few examples of them, but it has given us a pretty good idea of what they are and how pretty well conserved they are. So further research and further studies, I'm pretty sure they're going to give us better results of that. Well, so in the picture, you're looking at some of them.
Yeah, and Kari, I'll unmute you as well. These are Karina's pictures when she was there. Kari, I'll unmute you, or just unmute yourself, and if you could just share with everybody these pictures, because this is your picture. You saw this.
Yes.
Talk about this.
Yes, these the mummies that you are seeing on the screen, they're on display in the Museo of Chachapoya. See, the name is Leimabamba Museum, and there is a huge.
By the way, Kari is totally a poser for photos. You can
Yes, I am. There is a huge amount of mummies on display on this museum, from children, from babies to grown-up people that you can see it on display. It is very amazing, and it's incredible that these people, that you look at them and you feel like they're just sleeping, because they even have the skin on, the teeth, the eyelashes. I mean, it is really, really unbelievable.
Well, and this is one that when you kind of take a look at what this is about in terms of the museum itself, it's blown away just by the fact that there's a huge body of water separating these two places, and yet here we are talking about this theory that, the Peruvians actually had a direct influence on ancient empires, on ancient influences. And this is huge. It starts getting you to rethink everything. And that's really the purpose of why we love doing these events. It's not just about showing you the country, but if we can get one person to end the call and go, I need to go back and rethink that because what I thought to be true really may not be the truth. I want to go back and challenge it. So there's that part of it as well. Karina, since we're here, you got some cool shots of Gokta waterfalls. So Chris, can you talk us through Gokta? And then Karina, I'm going to show that picture of you again posing at Gokta because I think it shows the sheer height. So,
Yeah.
Chris, go ahead. You want to talk about Gokta real quick in terms of just what the waterfall itself?
Absolutely. Help me out with the translation or converting 770 meters high into feet.
About 2,200 feet.
There you go. So,
yeah.
So you have a pretty good idea how tall this fall is. As I said, the fifth highest in the world, amazingly. And it's pretty much right around the corner, about an hour and 20 minutes of a drive to a little town that is, that unique, peculiar Peruvian town in the middle of nowhere where you get pretty much barely electricity and just happy, friendly people, faces looking all over you. And then you start your hike on some sort of cloud forest area. You can see that there are pretty tall wall-looking mountains in the surroundings, but the actual vegetation is quite lush around. The hike itself takes about an hour and 45 minutes, I'll say. She's maybe 2 hours.
Yeah, it took us about 2 hours to the first point, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And then the first point is where you have a pretty nice view from the distance, but you can actually get as close as to where you see in the picture, and even actually closer. I don't know if Karina, you made it all the way that closer. When I got there, it was so this is the very first point where you can actually see the fall. But from there, you can actually go to the very bottom of that very first part of the fall in the higher. Exactly. Thank you.
Well, and I want to share the picture that I just showed. So the picture before this one right here, is right there. Right, Kari? It's right here.
Yes, that's right. Yes, correct.
So, there we go.
If you've been to Niagara Falls, Victoria Falls, you've got the railing and everything else, and there's crowds and whatnot. None of that's here. No crowds and no railing. So if you don't get along with the person you're there with, just push. It's pretty easy.
Back then, as usual, we were there. I think we walked by a couple of South American young men, a couple of young couples also from Lima, which was kindly surprising to see. But that was about it. Then the rest, it was our group and our people.
Yeah, it's nothing there, and nobody else there. And what was really cool was the guide that we use. And Lisa, you would have known him. Gisela knows him obviously as well. Peter.
Yes.
So Peter is this staunch German fellow. He married a Peruvian. His wife sadly succumbed to cancer. He has twin boys, and so he stays there and guides because of his kids. He's the former mayor of Chachapoyas. So he takes you through and is basically showing you all sorts of different things and whatnot. And so what was really cool was at Cuelap, Chris had a really good conversation with him. And I think, Chris, remember, it was about archaeology versus, what was it? It was a friendly debate, but I can't remember. It was you were coming from an archaeologist standpoint. He was talking from the anthropology standpoint, I think.
Correct. Yes, you're correct.
Do you remember that part of that conversation? Because it was such a cool conversation in terms of just the back and forth. And it was talking about, the digging up versus not digging up and the two sides of it. I don't know if you remember.
I remember pointing something out that occurred to me at that particular moment. I don't quite remember exactly what it was about. Probably he may have mentioned that archaeologists haven't done enough. But then I said, it's not about coming and excavating and what we call making archaeological interventions like crazy. We have to leave the majority of the percentage of these areas untouched for not only future generations when we get a better, not only better technology, but a better understanding of why, who, when, what for did all of these people make these constructions up there. So I believe he mentioned something like that. He said, archaeologists have only uncovered a very small percentage or something. I believe he said. So I corrected, it's a very, very slow process.
So I see a whole bunch of faces here now, which is great. So in the chat box, or you can hold up your glass, how many of you have Pisco Sours?
I got a passion fruit.
You got-
Sure, sorry. We got
Yeah.
Pisco on it.
Go ahead and type Y in the chat box if you want to as well, if you have that as well. Does anybody want to talk about Machu Picchu? Type Y in the box and we can talk about that. And I got a funny story about that for you guys as well. So an emphatic yes. Okay. All right. So be it. So, Chris, let's talk about this because something amazing happened when you and I were going up to Machu Picchu. We never got there. But then you told me about this story about, during the floods when you had to actually run back.
Oh, wow. Yes.
So let's talk about that and we'll talk about what happened to us and then we go from there. So take it away.
A little over 10 years ago, January 23rd of 2010. Wow, I will never forget that date. I was on my way to Machu Picchu on a train with my brother, who is a tour guide, and a large group of kids from Gustavus College from Minnesota. And it was in the afternoon. Next day in the morning, we were heading to Machu Picchu, and we could see the river, the Urubamba River, cutting the Sacred Valley through from east to west. Bigger than never seen before. By the time we were touring the site, all of the guards and the rangers were telling us, you guys need to leave. It was a slow season, rainy season, January. So the guys, you guys need to leave because the river is too strong and might take the bridges down. We wouldn't believe. A couple of hours later, we happened to see the whole town closed due emergency because the river was actually in the process of dragging various bridges around. We wouldn't believe it, but it was true. As a result of that, more than 3,500 visitors plus all of the locals got stuck in Aguascalientes or Machu Picchu Pueblo for about 5 days. Luckily, we found another hotel because ours was totally evacuated. Sadly, there was no response, a quick response by our government of what was going to happen. So after 5 days, my brother and myself decided to hike back, following the train tracks by the river. I know it was something crazy, but our desperation was, we have to do something. And if our governments or something can do, we may be able to do something from Cusco. So we ended hiking back for about 10 hours. All the way to Ollantaytambo in the Sacred Valley, from where we finally got a van back to the city of Cusco. By the time we got home at around 5 p.m., we called at the hotels, and all of our guests, all of the kids and teachers and few parents were evacuated that same morning to the hotel. So it all worked out perfectly, but this is something that, it has never happened, at least not in our modern times that we can remember. I'm pretty sure back then, and our ancestors, for one reason, decided to build Machu Picchu that you see in the picture up high in the mountain. The town that I'm talking about is going to be on the right-hand side of the picture. Well, it's not visible, but it's over 1,000 feet of a drop or more than that, all the way to the bottom of the valley. So it's for one reason that our ancestors built sites like this up high in the mountains. In Cuelap, the site that we were talking about, is the same idea. So what happened to us 2 years ago, Ashish? Ashish is gone. Ashish.
Oh no, I'm here. So at that point, we had, and this is why we should be hiking to Machu Picchu with Chris and not going on the train. So 2 years ago, and actually Gisella's at fault too because she was there too. So this is proof. You want proof that we work together? This could only happen to us. We were going up to Machu Picchu. Gisela was celebrating her 50th birthday, but she was really 33. So we were basically going up. It was, so she was there, and I'm not even kidding you. But on the way up, our trains hit each other, tapped, not hard. So we never made it up. So 10 hours we were stuck on this train. We got off, and of all the trains that we have to hit, we hit hers. So for 2 years, I've never heard the end of it. So it was literally that, right?
Stop guessing why my boss was on another train.
So,
I need a pisco sour to remember.
the cool
Logistic.
thing though, that I think what tells a lot about the Peruvian people, right? So the conductor on our particular car was very apologetic. He, in Spanish says, I'm very sorry for not getting to Machu Picchu. And of course, I had just heard this story from Chris about him running down from Machu Picchu and said, so what are the odds that this happens twice as the same guy, and now I happen to be with him? So the rule of the story is don't go to Machu Picchu with him, meet him there. So we start looking at this and saying, well, what was amazing was this guy starts telling me, he says, I'm very sorry. And I explained to him, that look, I travel a lot for work, and you just gave me 10 hours with my son, with my wife, with my daughter, uninterrupted, that I would never have had. And we come back, and then we start doing all these impromptu things, started talking about everything else and whatnot. And that's I think, the part of it is the fact that Peru takes you beyond Machu Picchu and beyond all of it. Now, I want to bring this back to Rome for a second. You guys heard me talk about, and heard Chris talk about, and Karina talk about ancient Rome, learning possibly from Peru. Type yes if you think I'm full of hot air. Because I can prove it to you. I'm going to find some way to prove it to you. And by all means, please type Y if you think if you think it's hard to believe, or you think I'm full of hot air. By all means, in the chat box, just put a Y there. No. Okay. Hard to believe. Okay. So here's a couple of things I want to share with you. Chris, why don't we talk about the northern part of Peru, near where Gisela was born? Let's talk about Sipan. And timeline wise, and talk about this, and I'll share some pictures, because this is the area that most people don't know even exists in Peru, in terms of location wise, in terms of what you see. So Chris, take it away, and then I'll show some pictures while you're talking.
Chris, you're muted.
Here we go. Sorry for
Here
that.
you go. Yeah.
Northern Peru, on the West Pacific coast, that various people has known the area as the Egypt of the Americas, where two great civilizations took over, the Chimus and the Moche, not to mention some others like the Lambayeques, but they were just as great and as advanced as the Inca did years after. They happened to get subjugated by the Inca at some point, though. But what I'm trying to say is that you thought pyramids could only be seen in Egypt or in Central America, and I'm talking about those truncated stone-made pyramids in Central America. We have our very own unique style of truncated pyramids, and they're located in sites like Huaca del Sol, Huaca Rajada, to name quite a few other tens of them. There we go. And the only difference is that most of these truncated pyramids have been built with some sort of bricks, okay, mud bricks, using the materials or in the area. Remember, we are by the sea. So El Niño phenomenon, which we believe is what has caused these groups of people to disappear in the time, is also the thing that has caused the most damage to this archaeological site. Anyway, it's in this whole area, it's much more advanced archaeology-wise than any other place in Peru, including Machu Picchu. I am a Cusqueño. I'm from Cusco, where Machu Picchu is located. Don't get me wrong, but archaeology is way more advanced in this area of the northern country. If you're into history, anthropology, archaeology, this is a place to come in Peru, northern Peru.
Thank you, Chris. It's my hometown.
I know. You gotta be proud of that. I love that area of the country. Chiclayo, Trujillo, Lambayeque. Oof,
Yeah.
amazing.
That's amazing places. And that is the area where I used to play around. I mean, in my childhood. That's amazing.
Very nice.
And Chris and Gisela, maybe you guys can talk about what we're looking at here, because this is an active dig that's still happening in northern Peru, and there's still a lot of it still happening. But if you can talk about this part in Rajada and just being able to explain what we're looking at here.
Looks like Huaca Rajada. It's some sort of burial. Back then, we believe that people used to bury their people not only in their own homes, in just one single corner of their homes, but if it was about the leaders and the elite, they were buried in their, let's say castles. For our culture, it'll be in these truncated pyramids. And of course, not only one has been found, various, and we keep finding many more of them. The things that Sipan, the famous Lord of Sipan, it's a huge burial that was found in the early to mid 1990s by archaeologist Walter Alba, after the locals told him that there were, how do you call these, not thieves, but vaqueros. They were just people that would dig in the ground looking for treasures to put them out in the for sale in the black market. Archaeologists heard about it, and Mr. Walter Alba got rushed into it, protected the site, and happened to found what is considered the Tutankhamun of the Americas. A burial full of not only golden pieces and spondylus and just aleations of different metals as an ornament of this deceased leader, whom it was believed was the son of Nailam, which is their main god. This was news all over the world. It still is. We're still trying to understand. But now in the various other truncated pyramids, many more of these burials has been found, and every single one of them has this distinctive or unique signature. And once again, this is before the Inca dominated all of this area.
Well, and what I'd like to do is, let's bring this back to Cusco, because when we talk about Peru, we talk about the Sacred Valley and Cusco and whatnot. Within Cusco itself, beyond the museums, there's a whole bunch of places. Chris was talking about this place, and Karina were talking about this place called Red River. Let's start there. And this is right within the hearts. Before going to Machu Picchu, it's right there. And so it's right buried, right in front of you. Can we talk about that? Because I can't wait to show this picture of Red River. This,
absolutely. Before you share it, just to locate people where things are in the country, you usually fly into Lima, which is in the central part of the country. And then from there, you could fly for about 3.5 hours to the very north of Peru, either the Amazon region to see Cuelap, or into the west coast to see the Egypt of the Americas. From Lima, also, you take an hour and 20-minute flight southeast into the city of Cusco, and this is where I am right now. You can go ahead and share that picture now, Ashish. This is the Red River. Many of you may have read.
Well, I'll tell you what. Before I share it, how about I just put up a map real quick for everybody to see, so you can get location-wise of what you're talking about.
Gracias.
Go for it.
There we go. So that's Peru on the straight on the center of the picture. This is South America, so we're surrounded by Ecuador and Colombia in the north. Huge Brazil on the east, and then Bolivia southeast, and Chile in the south. Of course, we got the Pacific Ocean on the east. You can see the Andean range running parallel to the coast, and it's this sort of brownish, rocky, ragged line going from north to south. And you can actually see that it spreads from South Colombia all the way to Antarctic, or Tierra del Fuego. So you can see that Peru is actually the third largest country in South America, with about 32 million inhabitants. So Lima is going to be located right south of the central area of the Pacific. There it is. Thank you, Ashish, for pointing. So from there, you can fly all the way straight up north to this green area, which is the Amazon, or from that northern area to the coast, which is going to be the Chiclayo, where Gisela is from, Trujillo, Lambayeque region, and so on. Now, back to Lima, you can fly for an hour and 20 minutes southeast into Cusco. Cusco region has 60% of territory in the rainforest. And then the other part is mainly up in the highlands, in the heart of the Andes. Now, Cusco it's got to be the mecca of archaeology. Yes, Machu Picchu happens to be in the region of Cusco, but there are plenty other, and we can trace back to 14,000 years evidence of men dominating this area back then. So we're talking about some of the oldest evidences of men here in the South American mountains. Only about 3.5 hours drive from the city of Cusco, located at 11,000 feet above sea level. There's a 3.5 hours drive to a place called Palcoyo, which is a little community known by the rainbow-colored mountains. All right, which is nothing but the result of what happened more than 50 million years ago, when the Andes did not quite exist yet. We were under the water. All of a sudden, there was a huge formation of these mountains gradually, quite rapidly, but all of these settlements that were once under the water, when they got in touch with the oxygen, is a process known as oxidation. So several of these minerals got oxidized and turned into these colors. Now, 50 million years after, all of these mountains above 17, 18, up to 21,000 feet above sea level were fully covered by snow. But guess what? Sadly, Peru is one of the most, one of the countries that has the worst impact caused by the global warming. In other words, the deglaciation, which is the ice retrieving back up. Please, Ashish, put that picture back. We're basically talking about the snow retrieving back. We're losing our glaciers. So nowadays, we can see what used to be under the ice, and this is one good example that happened to be known now. Is the second most popular site after Machu Picchu, the Rainbow Mountain. So all of those colors, now you have an idea where they come from, the oxidations of the minerals. Not too far away from these Rainbow Mountains is where the Red River is, which is nothing but the drainage of all of these minerals that are mainly seen during the rainy season. Simple. The rain comes down and washes away all of the minerals, and they all get gathered in one single river. As I said, we didn't know about the existence of this until 5 or 8 years ago, because as I said, it was fully covered by snow. Look at that. There's no filter, no extra colors added to the pictures or anything like that. The green is due to the fact that it's the rainy season, and the color on the river itself is nothing but the existence of iron out of the rest of the minerals that are basically drained down by the water. How about that?
These are all places that are, just around Cusco itself in terms of seeing this. And so this is if you're going heading towards Machu Picchu and whatnot, we always tell people that even being up at altitude, there's something very special around Cusco, around the Sacred Valley itself as well, that just adds flavor to it. Chris, when we came on, we were talking about water sources and clean water sources in Cusco and the areas around. Do you want to talk about that a bit more in terms of just where right now the clean water, and actually, since the sun's still up, why don't we talk about, to your other side, the ruins that we ended up at when we couldn't get to Machu Picchu? It was
Sure. Talking about water. I really like these interesting facts, like for instance, Peru has about 8 or 9% of the fresh running water of the planet. I know it takes a second to understand. Remember, we are the 3rd largest country in South America, the 6th largest country in the Americas together, after Canada, US, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, and then here we come. And it's incredible to believe that we have that much amount of water. On that same area south of Cusco towards the Rainbow Mountain, there's this gigantic glacier. The name just leaped out through my mind. There's this, it's simply the largest tropical glacier that we still have in the world. It's right here in the region of Cusco. It's only 3.5 hours drive from here. So talking about fresh water, we have quite a lot. Water
Where
is,
you were
yeah.
also talking about Huaraz as well as being one of the cleanest water sources in all of South America. I think you who is it? Karina was telling me that it's the Patagonia of Peru, if you will. Do you want to talk about that as well? I have a cool picture I want to show everybody.
I think Chris is the one who told you about that, Ashish.
Ah, okay. All right, the Grandmaster, go ahead.
Duster.
Quelcaya Glacier, I just remember it. Quelcaya Glacier is the one located here in Cusco. I should have mentioned that to you earlier, Ashish, but yes, Huaraz area is where the fourth highest peak in the whole Americas is located. Only about 400 meters lower than the Aconcagua, which is located in northern Argentina, as the highest peak in America, which is above 22,800 feet. This one that you're looking at is in the central Peru, right up north from the region of Cusco. It's called Huascarán, and it's 22.5. It's right there. It's very close. Look at, as we say in Spanish, look at the eye of water. When you look it up from the sky, they look like shiny, bright spots in the middle of the Andes, of the rugged areas. That's why we call them eyes of water, so bright. So this is one of them. This is an amazing site that barely tourists will go. And I mean, once it gets developed, even right now, it's just an amazing place to camp, for adventurers, hikers, and so on, fishing, and so on. This is a great area. Now, this is where the cleanest fresh water in Peru is going to be at, the Huaraz area.
And actually, so Gisela actually and Karina developed a program up here. And Lisa, I think you and I were talking about this. So there's a property up here called Lazy Dog Inn. It's owned by an American woman that it is a fully solar powered property. And it's what, I think 9 or 10 rooms. It's an hacienda up here. I think Gisela, right around this area, right? In terms of it. Oh, she's muted. You're muted. There we go.
Yes, it's a small boutique hotel that is in Huaraz city, and it's fully solar energy, so it's really good.
And the owner used to work as a hedge fund manager, and she ended up moving to Peru and took over this place and just fell in love with it. And I didn't understand why she moved. Then I saw this, I go, well, okay, I think I'd move in with her too. So I mean, it looked amazing. So in terms of this was the main area in terms of just being able to say, yeah, Lisa, it's one of our favorite pictures because again, it just represents there's so much more, but we can tie this all back to Machu Picchu. We can tie this back as well because there's now a new Machu Picchu. You're right, the sister called Choquequirao. And Chris, do you want to talk about Choquequirao because you know these places like nobody else?
Once again, going back to the region of Cusco is where Choquequirao is located in the western Andean range, so to the west of Machu Picchu, not too far away actually. If we could have a better access like what our ancestors had back then with Inca trails, it would be faster for us to get there. But it's pretty much in the same region or area where Machu Picchu is. Bigger than, in area or territory, is bigger than Machu Picchu. As impressive, an area that an archaeologist friend of mine, archaeologist Gustavo Garcia Dalguerri, has been researching in the past 4 to 5 years now, and he has come up with amazing results. he, as a matter of fact, because it's such a remote area, happens to be working as we speak in that area. So no virus in that area, virus-free environment. He was the one actually who years ago was part of the team who found this large set of terraces, and in every single terrace in the wall will have a different camelid figure. Camelid, in other words, llamas or alpacas, for instance, built in the wall with a different type of rock, kind of white color on it, but from the distance appears like a huge herd of llamas walking up the mountain on this beautiful set of Inca terraces. Now, this is Inca. The only thing about this is that you hike about 3 days to get there on partially Inca trail. And when I say Inca trail, it's an original stone paved trail that is as old as 1,000 years ago, and partial dirt and so on. You walk through some of the villages in the surrounding, meet the people, share stories, share the words, share food with them, and eventually you hike back. You go up and down the rugged mountains. I'm going to say Ashish is a 7, 1 to 10. 10 being the hardest is going to be a 7 on how strenuous a hike could be, but absolutely worth it. If you want to compare that to the famous Inca Trail, the one that takes you all the way to Machu Picchu, absolutely stunning. It takes 4 days. Usually you camp 3 nights. You are more than 70% on an original stone paved Inca Trail. And yes, you get at the end to Machu Picchu, you tour it, and then you take the train back. That makes it easier. But to Choquequirao, you hike back and forth. But absolutely worth it. And yes, I'm pretty sure it's going to be the next Machu Picchu very soon.
So with a Y in the text box, who here is the crazy one in the family? Who put a Y if you're the person who actually would be doing that? At least I already know you would do it in a heartbeat. Who else would put a Y if you would be the person who'd want to go zip lining and go hiking and doing this? You don't have well, a couple of us are biased here, but from others in the group, and it's okay to put no as well, in terms of it, but. In general, the adventurous side, you can be adventurous, you can be laid back, you can be in a train, you could be, as you said, hiking, and every bit of it is going as slow as you want to go. So I have to share with you who on this call, put a Y if you got grandkids or kids that are early teens. Put a Y if you got grandkids or kids that are early teens. Anybody else, please, by all means, share as well. So and the reason I asked that, and this is even more reason is they're going to ask probably at some point about going ziplining or doing this. And so I always share, this is one of my favorite pictures, and I always share this just because, Chris talked me into it, so it's his fault. But beyond that, I always share this picture right here. That's coming up right now. This is a place called Sky Lodge. This is in the Sacred Valley. Chris, do you want to talk about this place, what this is about?
Absolutely. The Sacred Valley, for you all to know, it's located only about an hour and 20 minutes of a drive from Cusco City. Located at around 9,000 feet, so a little over 2,000 feet of difference in elevation. So it's where we mostly take our guests as soon as they land into the city of Cusco from Lima. We drive them straight down into 9,000 feet to the Sacred Valley of the Inca, full of various attractions. One of them is the one that Ashish is showing to you, the Sky Lodge. I believe that the name kind of gives you an idea. It's nearby Ollantaytambo, where you take the train down to Machu Picchu on a cliff, a very straight up rocky mountain. A crazy group of young men from Lima built 3 glass-made capsules into the mountain. That's a picture of Karina in the background on pink and myself hiking down to one of these glass capsules where people stay overnight. But to get there from the river that you can see far in the back at the bottom of the valley, you hike up on metal steps. They look like a ladder, and you're tied up at all times on a lifeline. It takes about an hour and 45 minutes. As I said, it's like an hour 45 minutes on the ladder. You get up there and you stay overnight. You eventually at night in the dark hike for dinner to the fourth capsule. So the crew will actually bring fresh meals for you to be served at such amazing location. You can see the constellations, the sky, the valley, the mountains, and so on. It's just an amazing sight. If you don't want to spend the night, maybe you don't quite have the time, or you just don't want to, you could still hike up there and then zip line all the way to the bottom. And zip line meaning that there are 7 different stops, okay? It takes another hour and 40, maybe 2 hours of the zip line down to the bottom. And the actually longest zip line is a little over half a mile. So it's fun. It's a great fun experience to do either before or after Machu Picchu.
So obviously not everybody is going to want to go ziplining. There's so many different types of adventure in Machu. So I'm going to throw up a random picture, and Chris, maybe you can talk to us about the different types of adventure that one has in Peru. And I'll just put this picture up so everybody knows that we're not completely crazy. But then be able to kind of show. So Chris, can we talk about that, the different types of adventure, so people get an idea of what's possible, and that you don't have to go 100 miles an hour with your hair on fire, that there are options for everybody. So I'll let you take over.
That's true. There's everything for you to do. There's of course miles and miles for you to hike. One more strenuous than the other. Some of you might be wondering about the elevation. Does that bother you when you come up here? It could, but there are things that you simply do as soon as you arrive to Cusco. Like you keep yourself hydrated, you eat light. You take the very first 24 hours easy. You don't run, you don't go play football or anything like that. You don't exercise, just take it easy. And plus, we got you all covered. In other words, there are plenty of activities for you to do, all levels, hiking, there's mountain biking, there's river rafting, there's mountain climbing. And the majority of all of these adventures options, you most likely end or start or going through several archaeological sites, like the one that you can see in the picture, which is one of my favorite in the region of Cusco. Only 35 minutes south of the city of Cusco, this pre-Inca archaeological site named Piquillacta. It's a gigantic walled city with streets like the one you're looking at that may have been some sort of main avenue that divides the site into the southern and the northern area, maybe due importance. But a lot of bikers, for instance, happen to run by that area, visit the site, and then continue their hike or biking around. What else can I think about? There's hang gliding, there's paragliding, there's ATVs. That was pretty fun. I did that right before Christmas with a group of Ashish friends. It was nice. It was really great.
And I would say, in terms of adventure, again, I'm putting up just random pictures of different places, all breathtaking images. And I think the key thing that it's very important as we close our time together is that, you don't have to be on a hang glider or zip lining. It could just be a matter of appreciating Peru. And I think the real gist of it is getting everybody to see, right, Chris, that Machu Picchu is special in its own right, but there's so much more in Peru that goes so far beyond that predates it by 1,000 years and then some. that, if you broaden your horizon enough, you can see things like this. So why don't we talk about this point finally, and then we'll see if anybody has any questions. And if you have questions while we're talking, please type them in the chat box. Feel free. This is very informal.
I would like you all to please take a special notice to this picture and its name. It's called Huajra Pucara, which is a name in Quechua, which is our second official language after Spanish, the language that our ancestors spoke back then, that a good 7 million Peruvians still actively speak. That's why all of these weird sounding names, including Machu Picchu, Sacsayhuamán, Ollantaytambo, Huajra Pucara, doesn't quite sound familiar to you. It's not Spanish, it's Quechua. This is one of them. Huajra Pucara has gotten to be known more recently, I'm going to say 2 years or less than that. It's once again southwest from Cusco, another 4 hours of a drive. You hike for about a day if you want to take it easy and really absorb the whole adventure. You have to spend the night somewhere out there. This is more remote than nowhere, but look at that picture right in the middle. Is a natural mountain formation where our ancestors have built not only terraces, but right lower section of the central part of the picture. There's a set of escalators or stairs, a stone pave that takes you all the way through those terraces to that U shape at the very top, which is once again natural aeolic formation that our ancestors converted into a whole ceremonial space for some sort of rituals. This is Inca. We didn't know about this place for a long time, but we have recently opened easier access for tourists to come. I mean, this can simply be another amazing setup like Machu Picchu is. So as I said, now that the access are better, we can go. So you should consider visiting this place when you come. Huajra Pucara.
And that's the key thing is when you take a look, if to get to Cuela, for example, there's a sky rail that goes across, so very easy to get there. Machu Picchu is the train, and then you've got the more adventurous to get out here, to get to Choquequirao, that involves multi-day hikes. So you really have a mixture of everything. And Chris was talking about the oxygen and the altitude. So one of the most amazing things, Chris and Karina and everybody else there, they can see you right away when you need it. And the answer is pretty simple. We tell everybody that when you get there, whatever amount of water you drink, double it. Just double it. Just rehydrate, and that should be the key thing. So, we I think we bored you all enough with some of this stuff. I wanted to basically make sure we introduced you to Chris, introduced you to some of our special friends here. Lisa, I'll turn it back over to you to see if there's anything else that you think these great people would love for us to talk about, or anything that we need to touch on.
Well, one thing I think you should touch on, Ashish, is that, Peru is not done the same way for everybody. With
Right.
you and your team, we can make it fit what their experience is. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I think, and Chris, I'll let you chime in as well. I will simply state that to start off that we've done Peru for somebody who has one lung. We've done Peru for somebody who's a triathlete. We've done Peru for somebody who was a paraplegic. So it really depends on where you fit in terms of your level of comfort. One of the things that we always tell people about Peru is that it's about what you want to see, not about what you can see. We get you to where you want to go. It's about what you want to get into. So Chris, can you talk about, maybe share a story of somebody who maybe wasn't the fittest person in the world or wasn't a triathlete, and how you showed them a part of Peru that they otherwise wouldn't have seen?
Well, I think the experience that I remember the most out of the over 1,000 times that I went to Machu Picchu with guests is this particular time that I led a tour to an Italian man who was not only overweighted, but due to the fact of diabetes, he lost his vision completely by this time. But he wanted to go to Machu Picchu and I guess feel the energy. energy. Prior to that, of course, we spent some time together in Sacred Valley, Cusco, and so on. Became good friends. He was either on with a cane or a wheelchair. So by the time we got to Machu Picchu, there are access to take you to a good 35% of the side if you have a wheelchair, for instance. But we needed an extra hand, so we hired another local guide from the side, and we both together basically carry him around. Not the stairs up, as you know, Machu Picchu is, but at least some of the ramps. And he built himself, before he lost his full vision, some sort of scale model in his hand of how Machu Picchu could look like. So by the time we had Machu Picchu in front of us, he had this in his hand. And I was telling him, so as you touch that scale, this is the urban sector, this is the Temple of the Sun, and all of the stories behind. And as I was talking, I could feel that he could see again, he could feel it. And at the end, tears dropped from his eyes, and that was the biggest prize I could have ever felt as a prize for me. So that proved that we can do it. We can accommodate, we can adjust everything. I mean, Peru in general is friendly to everything. So according to what you like to see, we'll accommodate, as she said, the best way. And I mean, we have from luxurious places, great transportation, trains are great, and so on. So we can certainly take care of you all.
Well, and I'll even add with my own family. I have when we went, my daughter was 6, my son was 11 or 12, I think 12 actually. And the fact that my 6-year-old did Sky Lodge, and then they went to Cuelap, and then they went here. They didn't want to hike all the way to Gokta, so we put them on horseback. So we were able to get them around really easily, and I think that's the key thing. And the misnomer that some people have with Peru is, okay, to go and see these ruins, we have to be in the most pristine shape and running 10 miles a day and need to be marathon runners and triathletes and whatnot. Nothing could be further from the truth. There's a horse everywhere. There's a train, there's tri-rail, there's access. No matter how you cut it, there's access somewhere. And as Lisa mentioned, everything is completely designed from scratch. And really, our first question, and then the question that Gisela and Lisa asked, which I love, my favorite question, is not what you want to see, it's why you're going. And then we build everything around that. I think that's really where this comes in. So any final questions from anybody? And then we'll let you all go enjoy your evening. But any final questions that we can share, or anything that anybody has? And if you enjoyed, Kim, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And if you guys had a great time, please pop a Y into the chat screen. We'd love to hear from you. If we've silenced you with just so many cool pictures, that's fantastic. And I hope that we engaged you the whole time. Lisa, special thank you to you for arranging this. Really, really.
It is my pleasure. I think, this area for me is a passion. And I think it's a place that I think a lot of people have on their wish list. So I wanted to bring it to their attention. And it will be recorded on our website. So if you guys want to rewatch it, something you missed, please feel free to do that. Also, feel free, if you don't think of any questions now, but you do later, please reach out to either myself or your advisor. And please feel free to ask them any questions. We're here to give you information. Especially in these trying times, we feel like we need to travel virtually. I'm dying to get out there as soon as they let me go. So
I'll meet you at the airport.
Okay.
Me too.
No, Peru is waiting for all of you. So when you are ready, we're here.
Perfect.
Thank you so much again, everybody.
And thank you, Ashish, and thank you, Chris, and your whole, your entire team. Thank you for spending the time with us. We truly appreciate it.
Absolutely, pleasure, and enjoy those pisco
Our
sours.
pleasure.
And until next time, hasta luego.
Until next time. Adios.
Hasta luego. Adios.
Thank you. Adios.
Thank you.
Gracias.